It's something we do every single day, usually without even thinking about it. But what really happens to that food on your plate? Well, today, we're going to follow it on this absolutely incredible journey, a 9-meter odyssey of sheer mechanical force and chemical genius that turns a simple meal into the very energy that powers our lives. So let's dive in. It all kicks off with that first bite, right? But have you ever just stopped for a second to think about what happens next? What amazing, perfectly coordinated process gets triggered the moment that food begins its incredible 9-meter journey through your body? So right away, our body hits a huge challenge. We can call it the biological dilemma. And the problem is this: we desperately need the energy that's locked inside our food. But the nutrient molecules, the proteins, the fats, the carbs, they're like these massive locked treasure chests. Our cells just can't get into them. The solution? It's a brilliant 2-part strategy. First, mechanical digestion acts like a hammer, physically smashing those chests into smaller pieces. Then, chemical digestion comes in with the special keys to finally unlock the treasure inside. All right, so let's follow that piece of food as it starts this amazing trip. Our very first stop is the gateway. The mouth is where all the magic kicks off, with both types of digestion happening at once. Mechanically, our teats are doing the heavy lifting, grinding everything into a soft mash called a bolus. But at the same time, something really cool is happening chemically. Your saliva isn't just water, it's loaded with an enzyme called ptyalin that gets to work immediately on starches, breaking them into a simple sugar. And that's actually why if you chew on a plain piece of bread for long enough, it starts to taste sweet. So once that bolus is ready, it arrives at this super critical junction, a crossroads where the path for breathing and the path for eating meet. And there's this tiny little gatekeeper, the epiglottis, with one single crucial job: make sure food goes down the right pipe. As you swallow, it just pivots down, covers the windpipe, and shunts the bolus safely towards the stomach. It's this elegant, automatic process. And really, the only time we ever notice it is when it messes up, and we get that awful feeling of food going down the wrong way. Now, here's something that might blow your mind. How does that bolus get down the esophagus? You think it's just gravity, right? Nope. It's actually pushed along by these incredible synchronized waves of muscle contractions called peristalsis. This is literally why you can swallow even if you're hanging upside down, though for the record, I definitely do not recommend trying that at home. Okay, let's move on to the next stage, because things are about to get a lot more intense. After the esophagus, our food is about to enter what I like to call the chemical gauntlet, a wild ride through the acidic cauldron of the stomach and a final enzymatic cascade. First up, the stomach. Think of it like a muscular cement mixer. It's churning the food mechanically while at the same time dousing it in powerful hydrochloric acid. Now, the acid's main job isn't actually to dissolve the food itself, but to activate a protein-shredding enzyme called pepsin. But hang on a second. If the stomach is digesting protein, and the stomach is made of protein, why doesn't it digest itself? Well, the answer is a thick, protective layer of mucus that lines the entire stomach wall. Pretty smart. So in the stomach, you see this perfect partnership. You've got the intense churning for the mechanical force, and then the acid and pepsin tag-teaming the chemical attack on proteins. What went in as a solid bolus has been totally transformed. It now leaves the stomach as this semi-liquid acidic paste called chyme. As that chyme squirts into the small intestine, it's time to deal with the fats. The liver produces this stuff called bile, which works exactly like dish soap on a greasy pan. It doesn't chemically break down the fat, but it smashes massive blobs of fat into teeny tiny little droplets. This process is called emulsification, and by doing this, it massively increases the surface area, getting the fat ready for the real chemical takedown that's coming up next. So, the stage is now set for the final showdown. We have our 3 main targets lined up and ready: the carbohydrates, the proteins, and those newly emulsified lipids. It's time to bring in the big guns, the specialist enzymes, to finish the job once and for all. And here we go, the final enzymatic cascade. It's like a whole army of specialized enzymes from the pancreas and the intestine are unleashed. You can see the 3 streams here. Amylase comes in to finish off any leftover carbs. Trypsin and peptidase chop up the proteins all the way down to their basic amino acid building blocks. And finally, lipase attacks those tiny fat droplets, breaking them into fatty acids and glycerol. This is it. This is the moment where complex food finally becomes pure, absorbable energy. The breakdown is finally complete. Now for the whole point of this entire journey. unlocking all those nutrients and getting the reward into our system. So how in the world does the body absorb all this good stuff? Through an absolute masterpiece of biological engineering, the 7-meter-long small intestine. Let's zoom in. First, you see these large circular folds. Okay, now zoom in again on those folds, and you'll see they are covered in millions of tiny finger-like projections called villi. But wait, we're not done. Let's zoom in one last time. And each and every cell on those villi is covered in even tinier microvilli. All of this folding and refolding gives the small intestine an absorptive surface area, get this, about the size of a tennis court. Just incredible. Now, once they're absorbed, the nutrients take 2 different highways to get where they're going. Most of them, the simple sugars and amino acids, they go straight into the bloodstream and head for the liver. But the fats, they take a bit of a scenic route. They enter a totally separate network called the lymphatic system, which lets them bypass the liver for now and join the main bloodstream a little later on. All that sugar flooding into the blood at once could be a huge problem, but our body has a master regulator, the liver. See, when your blood sugar is high right after a meal, the liver converts that extra glucose into a storage molecule called glycogen. Then, later on, when your blood sugar starts to dip, the liver breaks down that glycogen and releases glucose back into the blood, keeping everything in perfect energy balance. It's this beautiful, continuous loop. But what about all the stuff that couldn't be broken down or absorbed, like fiber? Well, that brings us to the final exit, the aftermath. Everything that's left over, all that indigestible stuff and water, moves into the large intestine. Now, its main job isn't really about nutrients anymore. It's all about water reclamation. It works diligently to pull most of the water back out of the waste, changing it from a liquid slurry into a semi-solid state. And that semi-solid waste, the fecal matter, is then stored in the rectum before finally being removed from the body. And with that, the epic 9-meter journey from the plate to, well, is officially complete. So let's just take a second to appreciate this whole cycle. What started out as complex food was mechanically and chemically pounded into a bolus, turned into acidic chyme, then broken down into simple monomers that we can absorb, with the final waste being removed. It is a continuous, dual mechanism process of unbelievable efficiency, and it's happening inside you right now. Which really just leaves us with one last thought. The next time you sit down to eat, just take a look at your plate, knowing the incredible, complex, and honestly elegant journey that food is about to take. How does that change the way you see your next meal?